Okay, welcome back to UniFi Protect tutorial part 3. So I don't have a new camera to adopt right now, but what ends up happening is you'll see two different notifications when you plug in a new UniFi Protect camera to the system. It will pop up a little pop-up window over here saying, "Hey, we detected this new camera. Would you like to add it to the system?" You can click Add. Um, or it'll also pop up over here, and it'll do one of two things. If it's brand new out of the package, it should say, "Hey, I have a new," let's say it's another G3 Flex camera. "Hey, there's a G3 Flex camera. Would you like to adopt this into the system?" You click Adopt. It goes through, adopts it, updates the firmware to the most latest firmware that you are running, and then gets ready, and then it's ready for you to use. If it is, usually there's like a little bit of a break, and then there's another room here. It'll say, "Hey, we see this camera, but it belongs to someone else's controller." Means you usually just have to factory reset it, and then it'll pop up as a new camera, and you can adopt it into your system. Um, so all of these popped up exactly like that. So let's just act like classroom number 2 is the new freshly adopted camera. We're going to click on it. This little window to the right pops open. And what this is that this gives us the overview, right? Status, connection, saying it's wired. Great. What model camera is it? What the firmware version is? When was the last motion? What's the MAC address, IP address? What are the frame rates, the bit rate, and the uptime, right? So all of your basic information that you would ever want is right here. So someone says, "Hey, that camera's been down for 3 days." Well, I can see, no, that camera's been up for 4 days. Or I can say, "Okay, this camera is running at, 1 megabit instead of, 6 to 10, and go, "Oh, that's interesting." So that means that there's probably an issue either with the cable, the switch, or the camera. So it gives us a little bit more. We can click here to give us a pop-up window of this, which then we can get in here and go full screen to the camera if we want. And then settings for the camera, change the brightness, contrast, all that kind of stuff. Most of these have an LDC, which allows you to kind of like demorph it a little bit. And I tend to shut this off a little bit, because if you notice on the edges here for these cameras, when you turn it on, it kind of cuts off some of the edges and eliminates some of our view. And the only time I leave this on is if I'm specifically, like, if I was trying to see this spot specifically, then I want it to kind of morph it and make it look a little bit normal. But because we're so wide in this hallway, and I'm not really, looking for super strong detail, I want to be able to just see as much as possible. And there's a classroom door here, and this is a hallway that's kind of coming and snaking around. So I'm trying to get as much, detail as possible. So, and then you got orientation, sharpness, and denoise, all that kind of stuff. And then you can grab a screenshot from in there as well. Okay, so the next tab up here, you've got the record mode. So you can do one of two things. There's a little check mark here. You can say use global record settings, meaning that, hey, the entire system is going to do the exact same thing. And I'm going to go in the master settings, and I'm going to say, do this, and all the cameras are going to do that. I don't always necessarily want to do that, so I uncheck that. Even though most of my settings are going to be probably the same for the most part, but depending on your setup, you definitely want to take a look at that. So, all right, so this camera is set up to record always. You can say never, and then you can configure a recording schedule, whichever you prefer. And then I have this on continuous instead of detections. So that's the recording option. So we can drop that down. Detections to record, motion detections. So I got that selected. Detection recording settings. So again, we kind of went through this in part 2 tutorial. This is how long is the motion needing to be on before it records, how far before and how far after do we want to record on the motion settings. All pretty basic. This is the frame rate quality and the image quality. So most cameras are going to sit in the maximum frame rate of probably somewhere in the 30 frames a second range. I'd say depending on the quantity of cameras and what you're trying to get, sitting anywhere in the 20 to 25 frames a second usually is pretty good. And then quality, I usually don't like to dip below 50%. So if I'm just hammering the network traffic, I'll drop these cameras down to about 50%. But Most of the time I'm sitting in the 75 to 85% range. We have enough infrastructure backbone of this network that I'm running everything at 100% right now. So that's not a problem for me right now. So if we move down, this is where we can say overlay information. I again have time and camera name baked into it. So if we do have to export video clips, it'll have the time stamped in the video and the camera name on there as well. And then detection zones. So here's a good one. Let's go to an exterior camera real quick, and let's do record mode here. This is a G4 camera, so this gives us a little bit more smart detection features in this detection recording mode. Hey, I only want to record when people pop in, or hey, I want to record when vehicles come in. So everything else is the same here. So if we go edit detection modes, so this automatically just says, hey, we're going to record everything. But this is like most camera systems where you can drag and drop these. You can add a zone. They'll do different color things, so you can move these around and kind of do whatever you want. You can delete them, name them, put the sensitivity, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to discard these changes, edit the smart detection zone. Same thing here. Hey, I want to look for people here. If you only want to watch people, walking through this pathway, you could totally do that. So, and again, this is just kind of allowing you to narrow down how much record time things that are triggered. Cross lines, add cross lines. Yeah, here we go. So again, these are just more ways for you to be able to say, hey, this is another zone that I want to record for specific events. So this Protect system is just getting more and more. And then privacy zones. So if we add a privacy zone, I have not used these yet, but I believe what this is doing is that this will say, hey, never record this area over here. And I don't believe that that means that it's not going to physically record it, but I believe it's saying like, hey, I share a property line with a neighbor and I don't want them being triggered. I don't want them triggering my camera all the time and recording what they're doing in their yard or on their property. So we're going to put a privacy zone in here. So never record if there's motion over here. So that's the basics of UniFi Protect. I'm sure there's stuff that I missed, and I'm sure that there's more things you guys can explore, but this is a really good basic layout of understanding of how to do this. If you missed part 1 and part 2, I broke down kind of everything on the sidechain here and the UniFi OS on the NVR itself. There are 2 different versions of the NVR. There's the normal one, which is the 4-bay, and then there's a Pro, which is a 7-bay. Both are stackable. So yeah, if you have any questions, comment down below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well for more, as I'm going to do some more of these tutorials. Thanks so much, guys. Until next time, I am Justin.